All right, Joe. Great to see you again.
Yeah, same here, Mark.
We're deep in the hockey playoffs. I know we were talking about that, so good luck on that.
Go Bruins.
Of course, not. So I've known you a long time, and you tell if you could tell the audience like who you are, what you do, etc. That'd be great.
Yeah, sure. My name is Joe McCool, and I'm an advisor who helps companies understand executive search, really helping them understand the critical nature of each hire and why too often companies don't get the right results. Peter Drucker once observed that particularly with leadership hires, one third of promotion and staffing picks turn out very well. One third of them turn out terribly, and one third of them actually never deliver the desired business results. And so I'm really committed to help organizations change that batting average and really increase it by helping them understand how to recruit and how to develop succession plans effectively.
Great. Thanks. So with respect to that, you've had a lot of experience with leadership. What's your perspective of what leadership is? Your definition of leadership, if you will.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Well, I've had the privilege of being around a lot of executive leaders around the world over the past 20 years. And when I wrote my book, frankly, I thought that I had a really good handle on leadership. Leadership, if you will, as a privilege, as a destination. But I think I've come to learn, Mark, that leadership really is more of a calling and an obligation. I was lucky to earn a master's degree from Gonzaga University, and their real focus was on something called servant leadership concept developed by the former AT&T executive Robert Greenleaf decades ago.
Hmm.
But really, the core of his knowledge in this space wrapped around the notion that the leader should be bringing a service orientation. That if you are a leader, you have an obligation to others, and therefore your highest calling is to serve others. Some people might think that, well, if you're the leader, there's got to be a lot of different people serving you. But actually, servant leadership is all about the study of leadership and the behaviors that leaders invest in and demonstrate that inspires people and that serves other people.
That's actually fantastic. Well, I know you've influenced me mostly positive, aside from hockey, over the years. And have you had any influence? Have you had one person that's influenced your career, your life, if you will?
Oh, wow. Yeah, Mark, that's a tough question. I guess, as I look back through my life, I mean, there have been lots of people, frankly, when you come from a family of divorce, as my parents did when I was quite young, I think, you sort of bring on some de facto leaders in your life,
Right.
sports coaches, Boy Scout leaders, priests, you name it, people who were in the community who extended a helping hand. So, frankly, I mean, the people who have helped me and guided me at points where I was unaware or just didn't have the resources, didn't have the intelligence, the maturity to make decisions and sort of sort things in my own life. There's been a lot of people who've helped me, and frankly, I can't even begin to count them. But I'm certainly thankful for their influence on my life.
It's interesting you say that. Not to go too sideline here. One thing I've always noticed talking to executives, and you and I do this to some degree, the same. I compare sports and business a lot, but a lot of executives bring up moments. It could be one moment, it could be a few moments where they made a great play, if you will, like on the ice, or the coach put them in for a penalty kill, or they ran for a touchdown. It might have been the only play they made potentially when they were 10, 11, 12, 13. And it's amazing to me how their confidence in their leadership is almost founded on that one time that particular individual was a leader enough to give them the opportunity to succeed.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Mark, I mean, as a sports fan like yourself, you see these great examples out there. It could be in professional sports, it could be collegiate or even youth sports. Sometimes, I think we tend to look increasingly in our society at who won the game, who lost the game. But I think over our lifetimes, Mark, we've seen a lot of cases where you can have the heart of a champion, you can perform like a champion, you can be surrounded by incredible players and talents around you, but you actually don't win. You actually lose. But I think we've all seen examples of those people who had the hunger, the desire, the preparation, they had everything. And call it fate, call it circumstance, whatever it might be, they didn't end up walking off as a winner. But frankly, I think it's what's inside that makes somebody a winner. And the team result doesn't always measure what's inside of the person, and that's why I'm inspired by so many different examples in the sports world. Win or lose, they're champions because of who they are and what they bring.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's awesome. How do you how do you think a leader develops a winning culture?
Oh wow, Mark, I think that's a loaded question, if you will, and, I,
I
and
think
I'll,
I'm not
I'll
going to
share
ask you
why.
easy questions only.
Sure. Well, let me try to address that culture piece. I think people tend to feel, and certainly having been close to the talent space, the leadership space now for about 20 years, I've seen and heard a lot of people say that if you get the right people on the bus. Everything's going to go great. You're going to have great performance. You're going to have a winning culture. People are going to want to join your team. And I totally agree with that. It's absolutely true, and people need to really view that and view talent as that thing that really differentiates their organizations. Strategy can't do it, technology can't do it, but people can. Um, I think the thing that most people overlook, however, is the influence of even one bad actor or a group of people who don't share the same excitement, passion, energy, commitment. Look at it on a sports team, for example. You may have guys who give their all, uh, total commitment, they're all in for the team goal. And then you have other guys who don't hustle. Other guys who don't give you their all. They may have more talent, but they're not giving you their best selves. And so, for me, I've learned a lot about hiring, Mark, as you have over the years. But I think also we can't overlook the importance of strategic and selective firing. There are some cases when you make a bad hiring decision, and if you don't act on that, that person's going to create some poison in the well of corporate culture. I think, unfortunately, there are times where you need to cherry pick people out of your organization in order to preserve that winning culture.
No, it totally makes sense. Is there anything that keeps you up at night?
Yeah, I've got a wife and four kids, so yeah, college tuition bills and you name it, all the bills that keep coming in. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I guess one of the things that keeps me up at night is sort of the issue of am I maximizing who I am in alignment with my schedule, my goals, my passions. I think we've all heard sort of the seize the day or make the most of every day. I think a lot of times people who own businesses they get stuck on working in the business versus working on the business, and I think there is a difference there. So to me, I guess I'm very self-critical. I'm really hard on myself in terms of, did I spend the past week doing the right things? Was I talking to the right people? Was I effectively conveying my message and why it matters? Was I learning? Was I listening? Those kind of things. And I think just time for self-reflection sort of gives you an opportunity to be tough on yourself and just sort of ask that question. Am I really getting the most out of every day? Life is short, and it's just really about, sort of maximizing who you are and what you can be and holding yourself accountable.
Yeah, no, I think that's brilliant. On a quick side note, I had commented on an article that the eBay CEO said a little while back, where he said, we're too busy being, and this will be obvious based on what you're just saying about in business versus on business. We're too busy being busy, and we're not being creative and if you will, strategic enough, and just thinking a little bit more rather than just doing all the time. And which has come up a lot of times with board of directors stuff, where the good boards seem to take more responsibility in helping the CEO and their team be a little bit more visionary, more looking at the future, which they may not have enough time for all the time.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the schedule demands on leaders these days are absolutely intense, and I think social media and networking sites like LinkedIn, I think they give us the false notion, Mark, that we already know everybody we need to know. And I've got 1,000, I've got 5,000, I've got 10,000 LinkedIn connections. I must know already everybody who could be or should be important in my business, in my industry, in my life. Actually, I think now there should be a real calling for people to explore who's trying to reach me but can't get through to me, or who don't I know that I should know? Who don't I know that could have the biggest impact on my business or on my industry moving forward? I mean, take, for example, all of the technology executives who suddenly now matter in the healthcare space, as one example. But, I think the real question is we can be lulled into sort of passive networking and growth by thinking that we already know everybody we ought to, when in fact, as the world grows smaller and more interconnected, we really ought to be pushing ourselves to say, well, who's out there that has knowledge and insight that would add to my own? And that's something that I think need to be mindful of moving forward.
Yeah, I've heard this comment before. We all think we're more connected than ever, but we're potentially less connected than ever.
Yeah, in terms of substance and meaning, I would
Exactly.
agree.
Well, I know you're pretty involved as well. How are you making a difference out there these days?
That's a great question and a tough question, and I think I've been focused, probably, Mark, for too long on making a difference professionally, in the global executive search environment and landscape, where I've been investing most of my time. I think the tougher part of your question, frankly, is sort of how have I been making a difference personally and in my personal life. And I'm actually on the cusp of doing something that's long overdue, and that's sort of taking my focus off of my business, off of my family, off of myself, and putting it on people, frankly, who would never expect it. I've been pleased to be introduced to some business leaders out there who were out on an African safari a few years ago, and somehow a set of circumstances brought them about an hour away from the official tourist area in a spot in Kenya. And they stumbled into this village, came across an orphanage, and found out that it was a government-run orphanage designed decades ago for about 20 orphans. And actually, they were housing about 80 orphans. None of the kids had sneakers or shoes. It was just poverty. It was sort of desolation and isolation. If it weren't for a headmaster and headmistress, these orphans, who knows what would happen to them. Well, my friends decided to get involved, and they're now in the process of raising funds to build. They've got architectural plans, and they're now getting involved to build an orphanage there from the ground up. That'll have bedding for every kid, industrial kitchen and washers and dryers and that kind of things. And actually, on one of their recent trips, my friends brought over suitcases of sneakers. And for a lot of these kids, it was the first time they had anything on their feet. And my friends got letters back from the headmistress saying, would you believe that some of the children slept in their beds in their sneakers after you left?
That's
So
fantastic.
I see something like that. I'm inspired by it, and I'm sort of happy to promise and commit here. I've already done it to myself and to them, but just to share here that it's sort of one of these things where I don't have to care, I don't have to be involved, but you know what? I've reached a point in my life where I've been successful. As I mentioned, I've been blessed by a lot of influences on my life, and frankly, it's about time that people like myself start paying back. So.
Well, I've seen you pay back and make a lot of difference out there, but that's a fantastic story. And what we got to all remember is it actually doesn't take much to make a big difference. So, it's good.
Absolutely. I mean, we're blessed to sort of have the standard of living that we do, but as we see in the news every day,
Yep.
most of the world doesn't live
Well,
like
I promised
this.
myself years ago when I used to come on college break to Miami that I would never take palm trees for granted. That was my symbol. So
Mm,
that's what I do. So these are one-word answers to complete as much as possible. The infamous
sure.
question: admired leader that you'd love to have dinner with one day, past or present?
Well, I guess past probably Winston Churchill. He has so many phenomenal quotes that I've learned from, and I think that make a difference.
Favorite sport?
That's an easy one. It's ice hockey, and just it has an amazing way to
Good
bond
answer.
people.
Favorite movie?
Wow, lots of good ones to consider, but Shawshank Redemption
Oh, you're
is a
hitting all my
favorite.
good ones. Favorite music?
Wow. I like epic music. There's a group out there called Two Steps from Hell. They do a lot of soundtrack and sort of epic music. You go to the movies and get pumped up and your adrenaline flowing during a movie trailer. It's likely that the music for that was done by Two Steps from Hell. So a great group.
Very
Yeah.
sweet. And last but not least, what food are you eting while you're listening to the music?
Let's pass the cheese and spinach
Oh,
dip,
okay, good
please.
choice. Hey, llisten, that was fantastic. I really appreciate your time, and
Yeah, you bet. Yeah, you
I'm
bet, Mark. Yeah, it's fun. Good to see you, and yeah, thanks for the opportunity.